Whispering loudly. Take your auto repair shop from breakdown to success with the Workshop Whisperer. Thanks to sponsors Safety Stop and Mechanic Desk.
Whispering Loudly is the Workshop Whisperer podcast with Rachael Sheldrick, and this is Workshop Whispers, the episodes where you can write into Rachael, tell her about the dilemma you're having with your auto repair shop, and we fix it. We've got Sarah in Fremantle today, beautiful part of WA. She says, I hear you talk all the time about systemisation, but I don't think I actually understand what that means. Can you please explain for me? My husband and I have a 4-bay workshop that is terribly inefficient, and I'd like to find out ways to improve workflow.
Well, hi, Sarah, and hi, Mel. Thank you for writing in, Sarah. It's a great question. Sure, what is systemisation? I do talk about it a lot because it is so important for a workshop to go to the next level, is to have documented and visible systems in place.
Okay.
So when I talk about systemisation, I'm talking about you capturing the way things are done in written or visual form, because it doesn't have to be a written procedure. It can be a video procedure, for instance, especially with your technicians being such visual learners. They may appreciate it being in video form. So think about something that you do in your normal everyday. Like maybe the first thing you do when you wake up is you go to the coffee machine and you make yourself a cup of coffee. Now,
100%.
Because you're a creature of habit, you would do things in a particular way, in a particular order every time you do it.
Yeah.
So you could make a system out of how you get out of bed and go to the coffee machine and in what order you do things. And if we recorded that into, step 1, step 2, step 3, then you could actually train somebody else to do that for you, and you would no longer have to get out of bed and make yourself a cup of coffee. Somebody could make it for you and bring it to you.
Okay, yep.
Okay.
This is sounding awesome. I like systemisation already. Where's my coffee?
Yeah. So if we think about an auto repair shop, we've got maybe 3 distinct areas that require systemisation. So we have the front office, so front of house, we have the workshop floor, and then we have our back-end administrative systems. So, what the bookkeeper and, some of the basic administrative things that you need to take care of, we need to document that. But where we find most success when we start the systemisation process is actually starting in the front office, because when you get stalled by the thought of doing this, the easiest place to start is just with where your customers start with you, which is when they ring up to book in or when they walk in to book in. So what are the steps that you take in order to successfully book somebody in? What words do you use? Because there will be a consistent delivery of words that are used. And when you eventually use your procedures to train a new person in your front office role, you want them to use those same words because you know that they work and you know that they're acceptable.
Yeah, right. So when you lose someone, you don't lose all the practices that go with them, right?
Correct, yeah. So we're essentially recording our best business practice for our auto repair shop. It's the way we like things done. Now, if you're even struggling for what that looks like in your mind, then the next time the phone's answered and somebody books in, just record it on your phone, what's been said. And then you can just transcribe that. And that can be your rough first draft, and, you can go back and check that the correct things were said in the correct order and play around with it. But it's really that simple. So your booking in procedure, should really take you, maybe if it's the first one you do, maybe it's going to take you half an hour. But once you get in the habit of just recording these little aspects of the customer experience, so, what happens when the customer comes back to pick up their vehicle, or what happens after the work's been completed, is a text message sent, is a phone call made to let them know, how do we do an invoice, how do we add a part to stock, all of that. Just very simple functions. They all need a procedure so that, number one, training becomes less difficult and less labour intensive, because you can refer them to the procedure in the operations manual. When we've got a completed operations manual, it makes our business more valuable for sale, because the prospective buyers can see that there's an instruction list for how to run the business. And when you take time out from the business, the team members have a resource to refer to when they're not sure of how you'd like to do
Because
something.
often they come to the boss and say, hey, what do we do now?
That's right. And if you're used to just doing things yourself because you're faster at it, then you will find that they come to you a lot because they haven't been shown how to be solutions focused. So if you ever want to be free of your business, then documented procedures are a must. But just start small. So think about those first customer interactions. Then when you've been through the customer experience, think about the daily duties that must be done, every day. What does banking look like? How do you settle the FPOS machine?
I guess it's quite a big task for some people when they think about it in their mind. So
it is a big task.
That stops them from taking the first steps, as you say.
But I agree, it is a big task. But if we just work on recording one a week, then after a year, we've got a huge resource library. Yeah. And, in the engine room, every Wednesday we call systemisation day. So those that are still putting together their operations manuals, they will record one procedure on a Wednesday. And that's all they have to do for it. So we're just taking little bites of the elephant because we know we can't eat that whole elephant in one go.
Yes. Or the elephant might squash us.
Want more tips to help your auto repair shop grow? Join our Facebook group Under the Hood with the Workshop Whisperer.
Moving on to James from Auckland. He says, hi, Rachel. Last week, my longest standing technician just up and left. He'd been here since he was an apprentice and he's now 6 years post-trade. He was friendly with many of my customers and knows everything about my business. I'm worried he'll start up close by and I'll lose customers. Can you give me any advice? How common is this, Rachel?
I think it's very common.
Yeah.
What we actually have to do is step back
and
remember how you, James, got into business in the first place. You would have done this at some point in your career, and it may, not knowing what the conversation was that he had with you when he left, he may have just felt that it was time for him to earn the big bucks, quote unquote.
You're laughing because it's not always the way, is that why?
Well, that's right. But there comes a point, I think, for those that have the entrepreneurial spirit or the desire to own their own business that, they just go, why am I doing all this hard work and, just being paid a wage? They only see the amounts on the invoice, not all the costs of running the business.
100%, yeah.
So, it's very common. It happens all the time, and that's how we get all of these, independent repairers. For you, James, I would just suggest that you pause for a moment and really go deep inside and ask, were there any contributing factors on your side that may have led to your technician's departure? Is your leadership where it should be? Or is it just a case that you really did give 100% to this guy and now he's got the confidence to go out on his own? And if that's the case, then you may want to think about how much key person risk you allowed him to have. If there's particular jobs that he was doing that he was the only one in the workshop doing them. And
Can you explain key person risk?
Yeah, sure. Key person risk is where there's risk around this one person in the business, and if they're not there, then that job doesn't get done. Okay. So they may be the only one with the skill set, the only one with the knowledge in their mind. And while they're there, the work gets done. When they're not, the work can't get done. So is it a lesson in terms of spreading out skill sets across your team so that if somebody leaves again, there's not a giant gaping hole in your productivity while you're trying to re-employ someone? And we all know, whether we're in New Zealand or in Australia, just how difficult it is to get a great technician. So there's plenty of technicians with a piece of paper that says they're qualified, but many of them don't have the values or the culture that we're after in our businesses. So really have a look and see what could you improve for next time, because as much as it feels like a bit of a punch in the guts that you've put so much into this person, we shouldn't be afraid of training somebody to that level again. I think Richard Branson, has a famous quote. I don't remember it exactly, but it's along the lines of, we should train them up so that they could literally work anywhere, but our culture should be so great that they'll never want to leave.
Oh, that's good, isn't it?
So, so James, if you just take a moment to do some reflection, are you ticking all the boxes leadership-wise? Is the culture good in the workshop? Are there some areas that you could improve? Because the next person you bring in, You're going to obviously develop time and energy into bringing them up to where they need to be, and you don't want to spend 6 months with somebody and then they leave too because there's some inherent cultural issue. So address that now, and then get your job ads out there and sell why you're the best place to work. And as for your former technician opening up around the corner, well, I hope he doesn't open up too close, but you've got no control over that. And if some of your customers choose to go with him, there's really nothing that you can do other than keep doing what you're doing, sell your value proposition. You've got momentum, you've got runs on the board, back yourself, and the rest will be sorted out by the universe.
Awesome. What if people want to get in touch with you, Rachel? How can they do that to ask a question?
Yeah, if you've got a question for our next Workshop Whispers episode, then you can just email us at admin@workshopwhisperer.com. Just pop Workshop Whispers in the subject line and put your question in there, and we will answer that for you on our next show.
Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for tuning in to Tune Up Your Auto Repair Shop with Whispering Loudly, the Workshop Whisperer podcast.